Okay, welcome to Your Health in Your Hands. I'm Dr. David Ajibade with the Brain and Body Foundation. And we are continuing our discussion on NAFDAC, but we're going to focus more on building a strong regulatory system. And if you were here with us last week, you saw what the passion that Prof spoke about, the importance of putting quality control in place for the sake of the average person, that's you, on the streets who isn't in tune with all the medical things going on. But we want to bring this over to you. So Prof, thank you very much again, Ma.
Thank you, so nice to be here.
For making this time.
Thank you.
So we've talked about some of the challenges, we've talked about NAFDAC, we've talked about the importance of producing safe drugs and making sure that these safe drugs get to the people that it needs to be gotten to. There's a lot of logistics involved. There's a lot of technology that has to be put in place, and you are beginning to put that in place. Let's talk about some of the things that I've heard you talk about, and I am particularly passionate about. The creation of essential drugs, especially drugs that we Nigerians particularly need, making that possible within Nigeria.
That's a very good approach or topic to discuss. But, you know, when I came, I met NAFDAC as an agency that was bombarded by industrial strikes. There were problems with the staff and so on. And from day one, I put that as premium. You see, it doesn't matter what you want to do. If you have staff that are dissatisfied, maybe because of one thing or the other, there's a problem.
Yes.
So I believe in discipline. I want a disciplined workforce. But a disciplined workforce, you've got to listen to them. You've got to know what the problems are. So my first 4 months, part of what I did was to listen and see how we can make their demands, or come halfway or whatever.
Okay.
So we work, of course, work with the council of NAFDAC, to improve their allowances. We first of all had the conditions of service, which they never had in terms of completing the document, the scheme of service. So I paid a lot of attention to the staff because I wanted a motivated, disciplined workforce. That was part of what started working for the agency, because I see them as a whole. And that whole, if it's not a whole, it's not going to work.
Did you have a vision at that time for what you wanted NAFDAC to be, or you were just trying to understand the system?
I wanted NAFDAC to be an organization that touches the person on the street positively. Meaning, if they said this drug is good, the drug is good. And it is staff that will do that.
Right.
So that is the way I approached everything. And before I came, I never knew that there was drug abuse problem in Nigeria. So again, the first 4 or 5 months, I was talking about tramadol, codeine. I never knew that we had problems. Then I realized a month to my resumption that we were not at the ports. NAFDAC was not at the ports.
What do you mean you were not at the ports? Everybody sees NAFDAC at the ports.
No. We were supposed to be controlling importation, exportation. NAFDAC was removed from the ports in 2011.
Wow.
So I started, running all over the place.
So who was inspecting the drugs?
NAFDAC was not at the ports.
Oh,
and that was part of the reason why we have upsurge in drug abuse.
Right.
And thank God the Buhari administration, through National Security Advisor's Office, came along with me, And May 16 last year, we were returned back to the ports.
Just 2018?
2018. So for 7 years, NAFDAC was not at the ports.
Wow.
So that's part of the reason why we are inundated.
Wow.
With fake medicines, fake unwholesome drugs. By the way, fake medicine, when people were talking about 70% fake medicine, that is not true. That is just the figment of some people's imagination.
Are you saying it's more or less?
It's less.
It's less than that, okay.
It's the figment of the imagination, because you can imagine 70%. That would be scary.
It's very,
very scary.
Yes.
But because NAFDAC has done a lot of studies, which is part of building a strong regulatory system, a lot of studies to see how much of our drugs are fake. And the last study that they did was that about 17%. And that is also partly because of our porous borders. We are bordered by 5 nations, and people just walk into, literally walk into without any control. Well, there's control, but not as much control. So that is part of what I have to face. But the narcotics, I never knew that we had that much problem. And for fake medicines, we have multi what do we call it? Multi-pronged approach. Because take anti-malaria, we have this mobile authentication system.
Right.
You scratch, you call the number, and you text the number, and they will tell you that it is fake or it's not fake.
Right.
We have the TrueScan. Nigeria was the first regulatory agency in the world to use TrueScan.
Okay.
It's a Raman-based technology where it will show you the fingerprint once you, like a wand, on the tablet or whatever. We started using that, but that we're going to restart because the technology or the software became outdated and we have to buy new ones, Was
that for malaria as well?
For any drug, actually, but for the malaria, the mobile authentication system was specific for anti-malaria drugs. So that is part of, how to build a strong system to ensure that what the patient is supposed to get is what they are actually taking, and that is not going to affect their health negatively. Yes.
That's a lot, because doing all that software, to me, it seemed like an overhaul of so many different things that you're having to do.
That is NAFDAC, and that is why IT is extremely important.
We had a pharmacist come in here, and she's really into safety and drug resistance and all those things. So I was asking about how fake drugs come into drug resistance. Did they also add to the problem of drug resistance?
Yes.
And of course
it does. It does. For example, antimicrobial resistance. For antibiotics, if you misuse antibiotics, if you use antibiotics at a lesser, or it contains a lesser amount, it's going to lead to antimicrobial resistance. And then the medicine that is supposed to work will not work. Even our food chain. We add too much antibiotics to the feed. We eat the meat. Right. The antibiotics get into our system.
Oh my goodness! So it's a multi-pronged problem. So you have to work with agriculture as well.
Yes, we have. Of course, we have to do agrochemicals to ensure that the chemicals are well used.
I think you have more than 24 hours a day for some reason. I don't know how you do it. Folks, we'll be right back after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. So, building a strong regulatory system in Nigeria under NAFDAC. Essential drugs. There's a need for us to make that in Nigeria.
Yes.
What do you think? What are your thoughts about that?
Essential drugs, my first goes to local manufacturing.
First of all, let's talk about essential drugs,
antimalarials, antibiotics, tuberculosis, antivirals.
Okay. For AIDS.
AIDS, exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yes. At the peak of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, I never knew that Nigeria had a lot of problems. But to talk about Africa, about 30 million Africans died before drugs became available.
Died from
HIV/AIDS.
Wow.
About 31 million Africans died from HIV/AIDS before the drugs became available. And my emphasis is on drug security. Any country that cannot manufacture most of their drugs, that country is in for a big shock. So my emphasis and a lot of my activities are now geared towards local manufacturing. Talk about HIV/AIDS drugs. We need to be producing our own HIV/AIDS drugs within the country.
But it's not very expensive, though.
It is expensive. However, there are some companies that are responding to that. Of course, there are companies that are making a lot of anti-malarials and antibiotics.
Yes.
But antiretroviral, some companies are responding to that because you need accessibility and you need affordability.
Right.
And if it is accessible, it means it's manufactured in Malta or it's manufactured wherever in Nigeria, it can easily get to the patient. And because no shipping or whatever cost, it will be affordable.
So yeah, you would have to. I mean, I don't know all the details now, but you would have. If a company from outside the country or within the country wants to set up such a thing, you would have to make allowances, so to speak, and cooperate with them as much as possible.
Exactly. That is extremely important, and
waivers, things like that.
Tax incentives. The local manufacturers in Nigeria faces tremendous challenges because they have to. I'm talking of drug now. They have to import everything except water. All the raw materials they have to.
Wow.
And that is costly. And then with the depreciation of Naira about 4 years ago, that didn't help at all. But they are still forging ahead. It is now encouraging them through better tax incentives to ensure that first we will have drug security, and once we have drug security, it means we are manufacturing. And when we are manufacturing, we are employing our children.
Fantastic.
Yes. And then with the way NAFDAC is going now, we are building NAFDAC according to international best practices. Then our own manufacturers that we approve, their products and so on, can trade with other countries. For example, we have the West African Medicine Regulatory Harmonization Group under WAHO, West African Health Organization. Some of our products that are being manufactured here now will be reviewed by the group, by the West African Medicine Regulation Harmonization, so that our products in Nigeria can be sold in West Africa. Then I'm part of the African Medicine Regulatory Harmonization Group. I'm actually the steering committee chair.
Oh, wow.
That is based in Nepad. The goal is for us as Africans to be able to trade with each other, but we have to trade in quality products.
Are there other people like you who share the same vision?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, from different countries. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So.
So it is a unified African thing that will to make sure that Africans get quality medicines. So we have that, goal in terms of collaboration and harmonization, and then of course we have the reliance. I mentioned reliance. You cannot work in silo.
Yes.
As a regulatory agency.
Right.
Because your drug may get to Malaysia, or Malaysia drug may come to you, and if there's weakness in the regulatory system, there's going to be a problem.
Right.
So we have to collaborate, and the rates, WHO now rates regulatory agencies 1 to 4. With a lot of indicators, a lot of evidences that you have to produce as the head of regulatory agency. I
hope we are passing.
We are passing. We started low, but we are inching up and inching up. The importance of that is that without a regulatory agency having a level 3 or 4, which is 4 is the highest, that country cannot manufacture vaccines. So if NAFDAC is not 3 or 4, Nigeria cannot manufacture vaccines. So whatever we are doing to strengthen our regulatory system is to make sure that Nigeria can manufacture and Nigeria can trade, and that the health of our people can be protected.
And that will save a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Employment will help with the unemployment situation.
That's right.
And of course, save a lot of lives.
That's right.
So, oh my goodness, I'm excited for the years to come. How many years do you still have with us? I'll be not going back to the years after
3
this.
3 plus years.
3 plus years, and then we can talk about another.
We'll see.
Oh wow!
Yes.
We would so much love to keep on working with you in this regard, because I mean, just this short time now, we can see how this helps the man on the street.
It does.
Helps the man on the streets to know what to do.
Yes.
There's nothing like knowledge.
There's nothing like knowledge. And with NAFDAC and your help that we're doing now, the different directorate functions within NAFDAC will come and explain several things. You know, food, drug, for example, using carbide.
Yeah.
Using carbide to ripen fruit, which our people are doing. Destroys the skin, the kidney.
The kidney.
Yes. So we are educating the fruit marketers now not to use carbide to ripen fruit. So
but you have to, not just education now, you have to put some strong, stringent measures in place.
We have to we are putting stringent measures in place because we are taking samples of food from different markets and going back to the lab to test and see whether we are complying or not.
We'll be right back after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. All right, so let's talk more about some of the common foods that we eat that are in the market that we are basically clueless about the health benefits or otherwise. We mentioned carbides.
Yeah, the fruit.
It's like a liquid that they put in.
Actually,
fruits,
it's a powder that's put in water. But once it gets into water, it becomes very dangerous because now it can easily penetrate the fruit that you are soaking into the water. Unfortunately, the chemical that is there causes kidney damage. But generally we don't know that we shouldn't toy around with chemicals.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think the more, I'm not talking of carbide now, we think the more we use of a chemical, the better. No. The codex, which is an FAO standard indices, have stipulated the levels above which toxicity, side effects, and whatnot can happen. But we still don't have that culturally, that it is not the amount you use,
but actual composition.
It is making sure that you comply, and it is there on the label and whatnot. For example, about 6 weeks ago, I was in Kaduna talking with farmers, with my veterinary and allied products director actually. We were talking to our people, farmers, on how not to overuse agrochemicals because of the health implications. So that is how vast our own scope is. Right. But let's talk of day-to-day food.
Right.
Oil.
Palm oil?
The palm oil, yes. Okay. Palm oil has a lot of triglycerides. Any oil that can settle as semi-solid at room temperature will very likely settle or start building along the vessels or along the blood vessels.
Really?
Over time.
Really?
Yes. And once it's like a pipe, once the plaque that is caused from this buildup increases, the path for the blood to travel becomes less and less, and then there will be cardiovascular problems.
So heart attacks, strokes, kidney disease,
ischemic, stroke, and whatnot.
Yes. Are you telling me that from food can actually, like palm oil that everybody uses?
Yes, the palm oil is fine, but use it a little. Just use a little of it.
I don't know. We don't know what you mean by a little because we cook our soup with.
But it doesn't have to be flowing. It doesn't have to have layer of palm oil or oil on top of the effort. No, just use a little and use vegetable oil a lot.
So vegetable oil is safer.
Vegetable oil is safer, than palm oil. There's nothing wrong in using palm oil, but you just use a little of it.
I've heard some people call palm oil a superfood. That's one of the most healthy. It's one of the healthiest things you can put in your body.
To some extent, but after it becomes a problem.
And because we black people, and again, I told you before we started the show, was that one of the reasons we started the show was to raise awareness about black people's propensity towards certain kind of conditions like cardiovascular disease.
That's right.
And we tend to get more atherosclerosis.
Exactly.
We tend to get our blood vessels blocked more often. We tend to suffer all these conditions. And now we're saying that in addition to that, which seems to be a genetic propensity, we also seem to have a cultural
baggage. Health food baggage.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so what else? Palm oil, we talked about palm oil, carbide, and then...
Palm oil, carbide, fat. Of course, fat from meat.
From meat, okay.
It's always good to defat your meat.
Okay.
Because those can cause even more damage to the vessels or cause blood blockage.
I see. So it's best to eat chicken, lean meat as opposed to red meat. And of course, if we're eating lean meat, we need to take off the skin and the fat under the skin as well.
Take fat under the skin.
Okay.
A lot of fish. People eat a lot of fish, which is good.
Right.
But
the challenge with fish too, the toxicity and the chemicals.
Wherever, depending on where they harvest it, and also part of agrochemicals, people use hormones. To make the reproduction better.
Even in Nigeria, they've titled that too.
And we are now working on that, doing a study on the levels of hormone in fish.
It's primarily testosterone we're concerned about in meat products, but in fish it's estrogen.
Exactly. So it is something that is going to get into the body.
Yes.
And then before you know it, all sorts of things will start happening. So that is another. It's not just that fish is healthy, but what type of fish. So we have to be very cognizant of that.
Apparently, sugar, I love sugar, and then of course the starchy foods, the amala, the eba, the pounded yam.
Exactly. The vegetable should ordinarily be more
than the
swallow.
Yes.
And of course meat, and then the starch. But we don't. It's almost reverse. That we take a lot of starch and then a little meat and a little vegetable. But vegetable is extremely important.
So clearly there's a lot of education that needs to go into, especially the topic of food. We're going to have to take some more time for that.
That's right.
So again, thank you so much for your service to the nation, Ma. We pray that you will accomplish everything that you have in your heart to do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, folks, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us. Remember, this is Your Health in Your Hands. I'm Dr. David with the Brain and Body Foundation. Stay tuned for us next week. Cheers.